Now, Labour, which is basically the UK's opposition party, has just suffered an embarrassing leak after its draft election manifesto was released a week before it was due to go out. Now, this is only the latest in a string of super embarrassing setbacks for the beleaguered party, which has basically become a laughingstock under its leader, Jeremy Corbyn. Now, first we had Traingate, which is basically where Corbyn was filming himself sitting on a train floor because of non-existent overcrowding. And then more recently, his shadow Home Secretary, Diane Abbott, was eviscerated following a car crash interview claiming that Labour wanted to spend £300,000 hiring 10,000 police officers, which would have left them with about £30 each a year. Now, Corbyn has seen his election manifesto leaked to the public, and he's been made the subject of widespread derision. The manifesto, being dubbed as the longest suicide note ever written, shows just how far left Corbyn has taken his party. Now, there are a number of key points here, but let's start with the unions. So Corbyn's leadership campaign was pretty much entirely funded by unions, and with this manifesto, they're going to get a return on their investment. Now, this includes a return of the collective pay bargaining powers and a vow to create a Ministry of Labour, which is all intended to give yet more power to unions who, may I add, have already been allowed to wreak havoc on ordinary working people in London. And this is in an ongoing series of tube strikes. He's even letting union bosses have more power in the policy planning process. See how that works out. Anyway, Corbyn has private rail networks firmly in his sights, and along with his long-term arch enemy, he has vowed to nationalise the energy industry and the Royal Mail, which would cost billions in shareholder compensation. And not only this, but many of his contracts for the rail are not even up for renegotiation until Corbyn would probably be an old man, but he promises to repeal the Act anyway. And that would have very long-lasting implications, particularly given that the company responsible for the already nationalised rail tracks themselves are 41 billion in debt. Now, basically, Corbyn has refused also to promise to lower immigration or even discuss immigration targets. And that's a key issue, as we all know, especially for today's voters. And instead, he's promised to veto any no-deal Brexit situation, which would offer his hard-left support base a glimmer of hope of remaining in the EU, despite the clearly stated will of our people. At the very best, it would leave us in a position of having to swallow whatever the hell deal the EU offers us, basically at the mercy of Juncker. Now, while his own party support it, Corbyn has made it clear that he wants to scrap the UK's nuclear deterrent in a move that would show just how incapable he is of engaging in geopolitics. His manifesto also claims he would rather move to see a nuclear-free world, and that our armed forces would only be used when all other options have been exhausted. Under Corbyn, the country would be weak, defensively impaired, and completely out of touch with global affairs. Corbyn has promised not to raise taxes, but only for those earning under £80,000 a year, and with an extra £250 billion to find, it looks like Corbyn is seeking the return of the 50p tax for the people already paying half of the country's tax revenue. And that's hardly a surprise from a man who has openly admitted that he wants to take the wealth away from the hard-working and entrepreneurial people who have made a success of themselves. Corbyn has even pledged to make sending criminals to prison a last resort. Clearly, a man who has no problem lying to push a socialist agenda, who would be happy to let £30 a police officer Diane Abbott play at being Home Secretary, and who would see Britain defenceless against international enemies and criminals roaming the streets, has no business being anywhere near our Parliament. This is being touted as the election that will destroy the Labour Party. But it doesn't look like Corbyn is going to need another 4 weeks to do just that. Thanks for watching. If you like that and you want to see more, then click like and subscribe.